Hey guys, welcome to another review, and I'm going to start off by saying I'm going to shit on this film. And if you liked this movie and you don't want to see me bash it, then I suggest turn this review off. And if you were expecting me to give this movie a glowing review, you're going to be very disappointed. Because Coming to America is Coming to America. It's the same title, but with a 2. Because it's the sequel to Coming to America, but it's Coming to America. Coming to America, 2021, is a horrible, horrible movie. It is terrible. It has bad writing. It has bad direction. Every character is just obnoxious. And it does the worst thing a sequel can do. It makes you question whether the first Coming to America was even good to begin with. And that is something a sequel should never do. It almost made me question, I'm like, was the original Coming to America even that funny? And I literally just watched that movie a year ago, and I laughed my ass off. It still is, people. I literally had to watch Coming to America again yesterday to check to see if it was still funny. It is still funny. The fact that the sequel gave me doubts, it just shows how bad it is. This movie stars Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, Wesley Snipes, Leslie Jones, and other people. James Earl Jones is in it a little bit. It's directed by Craig Brewer, who I don't mind as a filmmaker. He did Dolomite Is My Name and Hustle and Flow. Love both those films. He also did Footloose, which I did not like, though, his Footloose remake. The movie is like 30 years later, and Prince Hakeem is king, and his dad dies. And he has 3 daughters, doesn't have a son, and of course, he has to have an heir to the throne that isn't a female. And then he finds out he has a lost son. Coincidence, I guess. And he needs his son to join the throne so he can make a peace treaty with Wesley Snipes and his daughter. And so he finds out he has a lost bastard child in New York. So him and Arsenio Hall have to go back to New York City, back to Queens to get his son. That is not the movie, really. That is literally the first, 25 minutes. And it's literally the rest of the movie is just Hakeem and his son and trying to make him a proper king. That is the whole film. So he doesn't even really go to America for very long. So if you're expecting him to be in America and back to those American jokes again, no. It's mostly just his country with his son, teaching him the things of being a king, and his oldest daughter getting pissed off and shit. So where do we to begin of how much I hate this movie? How about we just start off, it's not funny. It's a comedy. It should be funny. Biggest thing is, what the first one had, it was R-rated. It was an R-rated comedy. This one's PG-13. Why did they do that? That is so stupid. What made the first one funny was because it was R-rated. Because Prince Hakeem goes to Queens and people speak this very foul language, and he doesn't understand the bad language. And when he uses the bad language, he doesn't understand that he's using bad language. And that's what makes it funny. That's what makes Coming to America funny. It's a fish out of water story, and he doesn't understand the customs of New York City in American life. He doesn't get it. Oh, hi, baby. He doesn't understand it. And that's where the comedy comes from. That's what makes that movie so funny. That's what makes Eddie Murphy funny. That's what makes all the characters around him funny. And that's what makes Arsenio Hall funny. Because they don't know what's going on. And that's funny. And the crudeness and the bleakness and the dark comedy make it funny. This one, there's none of that. There's absolutely none of that in this movie. A lot of the fish out of water story is his son, but his fish out of water story is in this kingdom being rich. Not much of a fish out of water story, and it's not funny. Like, the things he has to do aren't funny. He has to, cut whiskers of a lion. Then he has to do this rap sequence. It's so stupid. No one can relate to this. And no one can even understand why it's funny, because it's not funny. It's not funny. And his son is the most boring character ever. He is so dull. He literally is just this guy who wants to be king and stuff, but then he meets a girl and she's a barber, and then like he's like, hey, maybe I don't want to marry that girl, and I want to marry this girl. I don't have to follow my dad's orders. I'm like, sounds like the first movie again. Just, and that's his character. That's his entire character. His character is Akeem's character from the first Coming to America, but not as interesting or as likable or as funny. He's literally just boring fish out of water story that just adapts very easily to everything. He adapts. See, Akeem in the first one didn't even adapt. Even by the end of the movie, he didn't fully adapt to Queens because that's realistic. But in this one, his son just adapts like this very quickly to this new country, new kingdom. I'm like, realistic. Is he a male Mary Sue? Most fucking definitely. And then he has his daughters, and this oldest daughter wants to be the queen and stuff. And I'm like, here we go. And you knew exactly where this was going. It was so fucking predictable. I'm like, by the end of the movie, is she gonna save the day and become the queen? That's exactly what fucking happens. Like, how fucking predictable. It's just, and of course, they gotta be strong women. They can't be. Nothing bad can happen to these women. Like at the ending of the movie, like she beats up Wesley Snipes, who's clearly a bigger dude than she is, but she beats the crap out of him. Girl power, and then she takes over and does this peace treaty while Eddie Murphy's at his son's wedding that doesn't become a real wedding. It's just like, oh my god, it's so dumb. And yeah. And Wesley Snipes is the only one I will give a compliment to. He's the only one. I thought he was the only one having fun with this movie. And I didn't laugh at anything he said, but it felt like he was the only one enjoying himself. Eddie Murphy, this was so annoying because I love Eddie Murphy so much. And I love his character in Coming to America. And I love his story and that he's like this prince that doesn't want all this materialistic shit. And he just wants to find a woman to love him and stuff. But in this one, he just is an asshole. He is such an unlikable dick in this movie, and I hated him. He was such a prick, like an absolute prick in this movie. And he does exactly what his father did in the first movie. It's so stupid. I'm like, okay. And he's a dick to his wife, and his wife is barely in this movie. Like there was like that amazing chemistry he had with her in the first film. There's none of that in this movie. The only thing his wife does in this movie is become friends with Leslie Jones. And that girl friendship is so ridiculous and irritating. How they become friends? They both like 80s rap music. That means they're best friends. It's like, what? That's not how it happens. And Leslie Jones is the mom of Hakeem's son. She's obnoxious. She's typical Leslie Jones who yells all her dialogue throughout the entire movie, and she's just milking up the rich thing, and that's it. That's her character. Her son is rich, so she's rich. That's her character. Tracy Morgan's in the movie as the uncle. He's not enjoyable. Arsenio Hall is so disappointing. The chemistry between Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall was great in the original Coming to America. They're barely together in this movie. Arsenio Hall is mostly with Tracy Morgan. And they're bickering at each other, but then by the ending, they're like, you know what? We're friends. Friends. I'm like, okay. Development? Just like, what? And then you get to see the Barbers again. They were hilarious. Super funny in the original Coming to America. The Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy Barbers. I don't know how they're still alive. That doesn't make no sense. They look the same as they did in the 80s, but I was like, okay, put aside that flaw, but the jokes they say are not even that funny. Because the jokes they said in the original were the crudest jokes. They made a lot of sex jokes, drug jokes. They don't do that now because this is a PG-13 movie. So what do they talk about? What's a hot subject nowadays? What do people talk about nowadays? White supremacy, Nazis. Yeah, that's a hot topic. How everyone's taking jobs from people. That's a hot topic. Like, you know what's funny though? You know what's funny about all those? Nothing. Nothing's funny about those. Make a fucking funny joke. Just because you're saying the world is full of Nazis, everyone's a Nazi. I'm like, okay, where's the joke? You know, everyone's poor now. Where's the joke? Like, there's no jokes in this movie. There's all these punchlines to no joke. You have to start the joke, then give the punchline. But they give the punchline, but no joke. I'm like, okay. You're like, hey, assholes, am I right? Am I right, people? Do you not know how to write a fucking joke? Like, come on now, people. Yeah, Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall was a disappointment to me because I love Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall, but they were barely in the movie together. Barely. And Eddie Murphy was a dick in this whole movie. He became everything that his father was in the first film. And when his son is doing the same thing he did in the first film, he doesn't even see that. He's just so stupid. He doesn't see it until the end of the movie. I'm like, you an idiot? So dumb. The way he treats his wife and his family and his people, just despicable. Like, he was a great character in the first film, and you make him an asshole in this movie. Good job. Arsenio Hall does nothing in this movie. He does absolutely nothing. He is a useless character in this film. Absolutely useless. And the amount of abuse they do to him is kind of annoying and kind of doesn't make any sense. And James Earl Jones is, like, shockingly an asshole to him. I'm like, where was this? This wasn't even in the first movie. How, like, really abusive they are to Arsenio Hall's character. Like, where was this in the first film? That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Every character trait in this movie doesn't add up to the first film. I'm like, where was this? I feel like I'm watching completely different characters. Like, this is not a sequel. This is like a reboot almost. Like, these are not the same characters from the first film. Like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, what the actual fuck? And it pisses me off because I love Coming to America. That is a great fucking film. And this movie shits all over that. Absolutely all over that. And it's so politically correct. Absolutely politically correct. It never tries to be offensive. That's what comedy is. Being offensive. Being risky. Saying things you won't say in real life, but you're saying it as a joke. You're not meaning it to be harmful. You're saying it as a joke to lighten the mood of uncomfortable and unlikable situations. They don't even try to go dark or risky or offensive in this movie. And that's all the first one was offensive jokes. They don't even try in this movie. They don't try to make women jokes or black jokes, white jokes, any jokes about drugs or anything. They don't even try. They try to be very SJW in this movie. Very women power, very man bad, women good in this movie. Even though they give none, and I would almost be okay with it because the way they treat the women in this movie is just horrible. But the women were all boring. The great character of his girlfriend in the first film is lost in this movie. They wrote no interesting women characters in this movie. They didn't write any interesting male characters either, but to make a strong female character, she has to be interesting. She has to be vulnerable. She has to be relatable. There's none of that in this movie. His daughter is just a badass chick that wants to rule. That's her character. There is no depth to her. I know nothing about her. She just wants to rule, and she's a badass fighter. That's it. I don't know anything about the son either. All I know is that he wants to be rich. But he has a dream. I don't know what the dream is. Akeem just wants to be just like his dad. That's it. Like, there is no depth to any of these fucking characters. Like, I love risky jokes and R-rated comedy. And, like, a PG-13 comedy can still be funny. But not this kind of comedy. Not when it's coming to America. Not when it's coming to America. That's like making... Sometimes you can't... It's also the vice versa. Like, if you made a sequel to Ghostbusters, you made it R-rated, that wouldn't work. Same thing with Coming to America. Coming to America is an R-rated movie. The sequel has to be R-rated. Simple as that. I couldn't find almost a thing that I liked in this movie. Actually, one joke. Very first movie, Eddie Murphy tells the girl he was supposed to marry, he tells her to jump up and down and bark like a dog. So there's a scene where Wesley Snipes comes in and brings his sister in, which is that girl, and she's still jumping up and down barking like a dog. It's been 30 years and she's still jumping up and down and barking like a dog. That is funny. That was funny. I'm like, that's pretty funny. Like, she's been doing that for 30 years. Why? That's funny, though. It's kind of funny. That's a creative joke. There was even a joke in this movie that it could have been so funny. It really could have been funny. But they didn't deliver the punchline. This whole movie's been punchlines, but no joke lead-ups. But then they had a joke lead-up, but they didn't have a punchline. There's a scene where Wesley Snipes' daughter is talking to a king's son, and he tells her to wait there, and she says, okay. She waits there. And then the next scene, Eddie Murphy goes up to her, and he says, oh, where's my son? She's like, well, I've been waiting for an hour, and I don't know where he is. He's like, oh, okay, and he just leaves her. I'm like, oh, was that the punchline? If that wasn't funny. The punchline to that joke could have been, like, maybe at the end of the movie, it's like a week later, and she's like still standing there. Or make like a mid-credits, and it's like a month later, and she's still standing there. That would be funny. That's funny. That's a creative little joke. That's a visual joke. That's funny. But they didn't even do that. It's like they don't know what fucking comedy is, people. Jesus. Craig Brewer is a talented filmmaker. He completely lost it in this movie. I don't know. There's a lot of cameos in this movie, and I feel like they were just like, hey, we're funny, right? Morgan Freeman's in one scene. That's funny because it's Morgan Freeman. Get it? Morgan Freeman's in this movie. Hilarious. I'm like, it's not funny just because you put a famous people cameos. They even have like famous singers in it, and they sing these big songs. I'm like, okay, they're sung well. Doesn't make the movie good. Just because you put famous people doesn't mean the movie's good. Being funny makes it good. Having good characters makes it good. Not ripping off the first film makes it good and original. Fuck this fucking movie. It blows. It can blow me. It can go fuck itself. Fuck this movie. Fuck Greg Brewer for making this fucking movie. And fuck you for making me even doubt. Making me even fucking doubt that the first one was even good. First one's an incredible film. Watch that film instead of this piece of shit. Bye. Join the dark side.